there's a lot going on there to make our content both honest, applicable, approved, government regulated. Like, it's a lot of work. So you're getting something that's more thoughtful than just a like quick blog post that we're throwing out there. People are going to start where they are at in their life, and we're just trying to get a product to meet people where they're at in their life at any level of complexity. You know, whether it's super complex or whether they're just getting started, we want to be able to help them along the journey. I think we've created something that will really help people get organized and start making decisions at a very low cost, which is like the problem that's been happening up till now.
Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of two hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, episode number 223.
Whoa.
My name is Andrew.
This is Michelle. With a slight sniffle, I'm only thinking it's Rona 50% of the time.
It's when she's left to her own devices to WebMD herself the whole time.
And then I talk to you and you're like, you don't have it. Shut up. You're being ridiculous.
Been cleaning out your garage and your storage unit with all of the dust and all the pollen that's happening right now. So very likely not the case.
I know. I woke up this morning and I was like, ugh, God, allergy. And plus it's like spring here in Charleston. We got all the world's pollen. And I was like, ugh, allergies. And then as the day went on, I was like, I just don't feel good. Oh my God. Should I take my pulse ox? Check my oxygen levels?
Well, if this is your first time tuning in, normally we give solid dental hygiene advice, but today Michelle just took a drink of wine. So, oh geez.
Michelle's left to her own quarantine WebMDing of herself.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, the wine. I saw the wine. I haven't seen the wine in a bit though. If I'm being quite honest, I missed that glass of wine for you.
So what's funny is like right before this all went down, do you also see my hands are spray painted black?
You missed. I'm just saying.
The can was broken and it started leaking as I was spraying. And I was like, well, I have a black hand now. Anyway, that's what I've been doing today. But yeah, before this thing, and for our new listeners, I used to have a little bit of a wine habit. There wasn't a podcast that we ever did in probably a strong 2.5 years.
All the good episodes were fueled by wine.
Where I'm trying to read science after half a bottle of wine. That was real fun.
Oh, I remember those days.
And I was like, deleterious? Took a minute.
We're like, and we're not editing those. We're just leaving them all in there.
We're leaving them all in. But yeah, I was right before all of this went down, I was trying not to drink at home because, I'm always like, if I get into a habitual kind of routine of like, this is my habit. And then all of a sudden that half glass or 1 glass turns into 2 glasses and then 3 glasses. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not keeping wine in my house very long. And the same thing with even social media or food or whatever. Like anytime I'm like, this is getting a little out of hand, I try to like rein it back in. And so my thing was, I'm only going to go and I'll have wine when I'm with my friends, if I'm going out to dinner, if I'm going to dental meetings, all these things. So I wasn't having it at home. And now that's changed.
Did you see the meme that's out there that was like the recycling guy gives the AA card to the person that's stuck at home because of the quarantine, because of all the bottles of wine that they're recycling? No,
but I did just see the meme that your buddy, your fave, Conan O'Brien put on there is like, can we redefine alcoholism now? Just for right now. I mean, is starting to drink at noon really a problem?
There's got to be like a different term for exactly what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's turning into alcoholism, but probably not starting out that way.
Well, I mean, we are a few weeks into this. I feel like everyone's kind of starting to establish their new normal and probably not doing as much of that day drinking, like when they were just trying to figure out all what life looked like. And unemployment was a thing. And like, it was crazy. And I feel like we've kind of all, I think, settled into it. It's very interesting to see people on social media going through their anger stage of this grief process. I mean, it's almost like if I was a gambler, I would put some money on some post.
Oh yeah. Well, and I feel like I've lost a lot of respect for a lot of people in the dental industry through this, and not for any very specific behavior, but some of them are like just children, right? You and I've talked about that off of air. Like, yeah, wow, like that person is really not getting the bigger picture of this is hurting so many other people. Let's not be so selfish. But also the people that are supposed to be so smart and get it just completely don't. And these are also like, sometimes they're business owners. Sometimes they're the leaders in their business. Like they are like high profile people, some of these people, and they are really ruining it for a lot of people. And I'm like, oh, I wish I had more respect for you right now. I used to for years, but that's what happens.
And I'm going to not be political correct because I'm definitely not known for that. I think we're really starting to see who the mouth mechanics are and who the people who understand science are.
Oh, no, for sure. I mean, I like that term is so exactly precise of what it is. There are people that are just doing they
drill holes.
Drill a hole. Exactly. Yes. And they get that part of it. And that part is.
And hygiene too. Like we're not trying to single out dentists.
Sure.
Because hygienists are doing the same thing. Like
calculus, let's scrape it off.
I scale teeth, and that is all I do. And I'm like,
absolutely.
Needs and mouth mechanics everywhere. Mm-hmm.
See, that's a whole nother conversation we don't need to get into. So we're supposed to be talking about retirement and savings and money and all of that on this episode. But that is the thing, though, of, well, if that is the job, is these mouth mechanics, then that's trade school level. But we don't go to trade school for what we do. We go to higher education because it's more encompassing than just the mechanical part of it. But
yeah.
We digress again.
We did, but it's really interesting to see some true colors. And there's a saying out there that I've almost said it a few times, but I'm like, I don't remember what it is, but it's like
the wine's kicking in already.
Well, I'd like to blame that, but I just have a terrible memory at like quoting people. But it was more along the lines of like, you really start to see people's true colors when shit hits the fan, really.
Yeah.
Like, you really see who they are. And there's a lot of people that were claiming that they were in it for the right reasons, but now when they're starting to lose a lot of things, and I'll be real frank again, a lot of dentistry is feeling dictated to, and as if they are under the thumb of a lot of government entities, and they're being told that they aren't valuable right now and they need to shut it down. And it sounds very similar to what dentistry has done to dental hygiene, and don't feel so good now, does it, guys? Like it just feels very similar, and there's a lot of people not handling that real well.
That's true. I mean, yeah, people are not handling it really very well.
Not. But you're right. We are on this episode. So because we took, we had a whole HPV thing, like we were doing oral cancer this month, and that is not unimportant by any shape of the imagination. Like we still should be honoring that this is Oral Cancer Awareness Month here in April. However, we did pull some of that content so that we could bring you information and people who might be really relevant to the situation that we're all living in right now. And so we brought on Reese Harper from Dentist Advisors. And you actually had been watching them and following their stuff quite a bit. I'm always more science heavy. You're more business heavy. So that's where, again, we complement each other. But you were like, oh, this is who we need to have on. When I was like, who could help us have this help navigate these very uncomfortable, how we feel insecure in our own finances right now, talking about 401k and retirement and stuff. And he had a lot of great advice, maybe advice that you might not hear from and he brings up typical Dave Ramsey stuff. It goes against that grain that, I don't know. It's just a little different.
It's just a different way of looking at the finances and a different way of tackling potential problems and reducing debt and things like that. So
in this moment, and it resonated with me, to be quite honest. So we really appreciate Reese coming on and having that conversation with us. And, this whole month, we're going to have more stuff for you guys so that we can just kind of talk about something that's relevant right now. Well, everyone, we hope you enjoy this episode with Reese Harper.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah.
It's time for the interview.
Oh, but I had something else to say.
We need to let the experts talk now.
Fine.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the interview portion of this podcast. We're lucky to have Reese Harper here with Dentist Advisors and also the Dentist Money Show. Reese, thanks for making some time and being with us today.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Michelle. I'm excited to be here. You guys got a long running program here. It's nice to be a part of it finally.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was really turned on to a lot of stuff that you guys have been doing lately, and it just blows my mind. So we're absolutely thrilled that you could be here.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's a lot of work to put out free content all the time.
Don't we know?
I don't know if people realize that. We've been doing it for a while, and eventually it'll become a smaller and smaller percentage of our revenue as we keep growing. But I mean, it's been a significant budget allocation, so I appreciate you at least caring to notice. I think people think content just like makes itself somehow, and it's like you're expected to be a media producer in addition to being a business owner these days.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, absolutely. Well, just like a little, behind the scenes before we get into the show, like how do you guys come up with the content? I mean, it's unique and different every time you guys are like chit chatting about stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got a few different channels. We have copywriting. We have a full-time copywriter that's like working all day. So he's taking our podcast interviews and like coming up with ideas that we can like use for written copy. And we have an editor that's part-time, but a really good editor that helps because draft copy is what I write. And I have a hard time editing myself because, everything I write is like 1,500 words and then it needs to be like 200. And they're like, you had 2 good sentences here, but all the rest is garbage. I'm like, okay, thanks. Just anything less brutal. So we do copy's a big part. Like for us, everything starts with copywriting. At least for me, all my podcasts that me and Ryan record at some point have probably started with copy somewhere. Obviously, Ryan, my co-host, does a great job at he's a great storyteller. He's a great, he knows our audience really well. And I couldn't do the show without him and all that he brings. He brings a great positive energy. But so the process is, we have Facebook Lives and a lot of like live streaming stuff that is really just me and him have known each other for so long. I'll text him and I'll say live in 5, we're going on this topic and let's just go. And there's no scripting, there's no nothing. We just go. And since we both are talking about these topics every day, all day, we can go live in 5 pretty quick and just try to stay narrow to one topic, try not to get talking too much. But I don't think that's the best approach for lives. But in my experience, like people on lives, like they want it to feel real. They want it to feel like you just screwed up and you weren't ready and you didn't say something the right way and you make mistakes and you are human. So that's how we do live. And then we have a ton of presentations. People don't realize how many events and presentations we put on. That's a big part of our outreach. We have probably last year, we had to get almost, I would say 40 different presentations approved, different presentations by the SEC. That's the Securities and Exchange Commission. So the federal government has an overseeing committee over financial people that are fiduciaries like us. And we have to get all of our marketing and content approved through a content department. And it is a pain. It's so not worth doing for most people. That's why a lot of financial advisors don't do that. So we have a full-time attorney and that was very expensive. I should say we have a full-time outsourced contracted agency that we work with that is about the same cost as a full-time person, but it's 4 people that part-time help us with different compliance. We have to track all of our texts. We can't ever have an endorsement. We can't send a t-shirt out to somebody and say, please take a picture of this and share it with your audience or your friends and tell them you like us. We can't solicit a testimonial. We can't influence people to like us online. We can't allow people to post testimonials on our own website without taking them down. It is so regulated and so frustrating.
What?
And if you're a life insurance agent that doesn't have any fiduciary licensing, if you're a commission-based salesperson, you have none of this regulation. and you can say whatever you want. You can sell whatever you want. You get paid whatever you want. And that's frustrating to my team because we're the guys that are, taking on the compliance regulation, but we're also the guys that are quote unquote the good guys. Like we have to disclose how we get paid. You got to know how we get paid. We tell you how we're getting paid. Everyone else can kind of do whatever they want, say whatever they want, get testimonials, sell t-shirts and gear and come up with cool names like the Millionaire Club, and they don't have any regulation. And so that's my moment. Thank you for letting me have it. I know that's a side tangent, but it's really hard.
Box we got to get on every now.
Thank you for letting me have that moment. It's been crazy, but it
just sounds like it's harder for you to create the content that it would be for like Michelle and I. Like Michelle and I, we have
really
like
hard.
You on the experts, and then now you have all these things. But it is nice to see behind the curtain a little bit, I think.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think people just knowing that there's a lot going on there to make our content both honest, applicable, approved, government regulated. It's a lot of work. So you're getting something that's more thoughtful than just a quick blog post that we're throwing out there. So anyway, we've had to take it seriously, but it's also the only way we market. We don't have one salesperson in our company. We just have a marketing department, and that marketing draws in all of our growth. And eventually we want to hire a salesperson because they'll probably help us grow a little faster. But right now we're just growing at a good pace that we want. Doesn't bring the quality down, and we can do it through marketing. And so we just keep investing in that.
So I don't follow you guys as much. Andrew's the business person. I'm the clinical content nerd. So what is it you're selling? What is it that you're having? How would you grow? What would that look like for you?
Our vision statement is a world where people embrace the habits of holistic financial health and live their present lives to the fullest. So we want people to embrace making good financial decisions through our app or through a consultant or just through listening to our content and not ever hiring us. We just want to make that happen. And so that people can live in the present moment more with their kids, with their friends, with their family, enjoy their time off and not stress about money. So for us, it's how can we make money easier for people and make it accessible and intuitive. And then, so we have a development team of, there's 5 full-time developers plus myself that work on this app all day. And this app is called Elements. It has not been available to the public up until last week. It got its first 25 beta users. It's a very low cost kind of a way to get help from a financial advisor. You put all your information in and you organize your documents and you organize your taxes and your debts and your house and your spending and your savings and your investments and your estate plan, your will, your trust. You get everything in there in one place. You connect all your bank accounts. That's kind of one way that we are trying to grow. So your audience as a prime example of a place where that app would be very applicable. So many dentists need full service, one-on-one, I want to text you at midnight kind of a relationship. And we can't offer that to everybody. So we're trying to create a kind of a chat-based lower service level, but still have it supported by really smart people just through not appointments and stuff. So growth for us would look like we just help. Growth is more people listening to our content or more people using our app or more people signing up for full service advice. Doesn't really matter to us where they start. People are going to start where they are at in their life. And we're just trying to get a product to meet people where they're at in their life at any level of complexity, whether it's super complex or whether they're just getting started. We want to be able to help them along the journey. And so that's kind of the investment in technology was mostly we couldn't find a way to get down market cost effectively because gathering people's information and collecting people's data was very expensive. And so we just created this app to let someone with not a lot of money be able to engage us at a less expensive cost and still feel like they had a connection with someone they could trust. And we're proud of it. It's working really well and we're excited for the future. So to answer your question, Michelle, that's how either more content listeners to our podcast, more people using our education material. We have a training class that people attend with the app and learn how to use it and kind of get advice during that training class. And then we have full service clients that are you know what? I'm basically I've got a lot of money and I don't want to deal with this stuff anymore. You guys just handle it for me. I want to just spend time with my kids. I'm done. And that's kind of the highest
Where I
end
would
kind
be.
of tier. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of those different tiers, like you'll find hygienists kind of in all of the different realms. Like you have really high earning, I'm all about business, I'm making a lot of money, and they're going to need someone to do exactly that. But then you're going to have people that are probably, a little bit on the lower or maybe part-time, and they're just going to need a little bit of help, but not a lot of help, and not too much engagement, some engagement. They can afford engagement. They can't afford engagement. So this sounds like it's going to hit a lot of good things for them.
I hope, man. We're really trying. I'm like sincerely really want to help as many people as we can. That's our goal. Like just at a cost-effective, sustainable way, like not make the financial planning so inaccessible to so many people. Because the past, it's like unless you got money to manage, unless you got a lot of investments for somebody to manage, then you don't have any access to good, smart financial people, because they're asking you, well, how much do you got to manage? And that's the way they get paid. And so, in our lower end kind of like entry level and mid-tier models, and even at our high end models, we're trying to make it just be a low amount per month that people can spend to get access. And if they need like appointments or extra support, they can pay extra. We're just trying to find ways to make it work for everybody. So anyway, that's my background. And thanks for asking.
Hey, so, during this time right now with, the whole global pandemic, I'm sure you guys are getting pretty inundated. I know that was really hard to kind of find time to even do this podcast, which we appreciate you taking the time to do that. But with all of it going on, money's just on people's minds, right? And so what I'd like to talk a little bit for the next few minutes, if it's okay, is I want to talk about retirement, what that looks like now, if that's changed at all. And then when things get back to normal, like what should people be doing for retirement? Is that like doing some side hustle type stuff or just debt reduction? Like, what does that look like?
If you've never done financial stuff before, you want to start by, I would encourage everyone to start by learning how to track things properly. Okay. So you got to start with like getting organized. That means like knowing which documents you need to collect.
Michelle doesn't like that, by the way. I don't know if you could see her face, but she is hating that already.
And so you're
like,
track stuff.
Exactly. So this app will make it fun and easy. Okay. So like we'll have to get Michelle on it and have her do it first. But like you put in your house, and it's kind of fun because you get to like, it has a pretty card, and you get to like see what it's worth and how much you have on your mortgage left, and you get to watch it grow and see how much equity you keep getting in your house. You get to enter your student loan or enter a credit card or enter your bank. And just you want to do first, if you don't even have our tool to do this, you want to start by just doing this on paper, and you have to track something called a net worth. A net worth is like a really fancy finance guy's word, and it's not very accessible to the normal person. But it basically means like if you were to like sell yourself right now financially and just liquidate everything you had and just like pile up the money on the desk, like how much is there? So if you paid off all your debts, how much would be there, right? So if you sold your house, if you sold everything and just piled up the money on your desk, what are you worth? Some people are going to be worth a negative number. And that's okay. Like if you get out of school and you have, if you're a dentist or if you're a hygienist and you had to borrow some money, you might have 50 grand in debt. You might have 500 grand in debt if you went to USC as a GP. And you get out and you go, okay, I don't have a house. I don't have any money in the bank. The only thing I have is a debt. Like it's negative 500. So like inside of our app, instead of making it be a red number, we have it be a purple number. It's a little more friendly color. Okay. There's a purple number and it says negative 500. And you'll see as you make debt payments, it'll start to go to zero. If you save money, you start earning money, put it in a bank account, it'll go down faster. So eventually your goal is to get to zero, where you're at a zero. And then you're like, okay, I'm not upside down. And you might get there by buying a house and having it appreciate. You might get there by putting some money in retirement. You get there by paying down debts. You get that by just saving money in your kids' college plans or in your savings account. What you're trying to do is you're trying to grow what you're worth every month. And at the end of the month, you want to kind of look and go like, oh, I'm up $3,000 or I'm up $2,000. Or at the end of a quarter, you might be up 10,000 or you might be up 50 or you might be up $200. It's okay. Like whatever your number is that you're up, you want that number to keep going up every quarter. So tracking means to me, tracking the value of all your stuff over time and making sure that it's moving in a positive direction. I would recommend everyone start there because you can't really get a tip or help or advice or all the things that Andrew, you were asking about are all great questions. but they all have answers that are very contextual to that person. And if someone comes to me and says, what should I do for retirement? My question is, what's your net worth? What's your debt? I got to get all this information, and then I can tell you what makes sense. And so most people just don't track anything in their finances. They'll sign up for like mint.com and connect their bank account, and they'll be like, oh, it's broken again. My connection's down. Like, I don't get this. It's a pain. And they just don't want to do it anymore. And they'll be like, I used to use Mint for like a day, and then it was, a pain. And so the truth is, like, maybe you won't do it on your own, and that's okay too. We have a slogan on our podcast. It's better with a buddy. We always say this. Finance is always better with a buddy, because there's a few reasons. Kind of like dentistry and hygiene is better with a buddy. Like, you can't do your own hygiene. You could, but like it's pretty like it would be like you'd have to have a lot of training, and it would be a pain, and you wouldn't do it. Like if people did their own dental, like they don't even floss. You can see it takes hygiene, accountability. It takes a buddy for people to do certain things that suck. The stuff that sucks, you have to have a friend with you. And so like dentistry, it sucks. Like, you want a dentist, you want a friend, you want a hygienist, and no one wants to do their own dentistry. It's not like buying an iPad. Like, it's fun. I got to buy an iPad. Like, that's fun. So you don't need a friend to go buy an iPad with you, because it's just like, you'll do it anyway. Finance, like, you're never going to do one.
Exercise is the other thing. Exercise with a buddy.
I was going to say, yeah, it's like personal trainers is the other thing. It's personal training. It's money. Usually therapy, like a lot of like relationship management stuff. Like, if you've ever been in a bad relationship, like I have in my life, or if you've ever been the bad part of a relationship, like I have been in relationships that I've been in, like, then sometimes I need therapy. Sometimes I need a consultant. Sometimes I need just someone to say like, hey man, like, the things you're saying don't make any sense, and you're kind of rude, or you're kind of being a jerk right here, or, calling you out on some things. I think that money is one of those things where if you don't have someone, you will kind of fail at it. That is my experience, at least. And so like with the platform we're building, I'm trying to say like, okay, you can have a chat widget with a human, a real human, at least, to say, hey, it looks like you didn't do anything. Hey, looks like you're still not doing nothing. And that'll help a lot. So find a place, a friend, family, a financial person you can get some help from. Reach out to me. If you're really this kind of person, you're like, I really want some help, and I'll try to find some way to get you on our beta to test it a little bit more. But I think people need accountability. So what are people going to do from retirement? What should I do with money? And I would just say the first thing is learn to track what all your stuff is worth over time, and start there, and then reach out for advice. And if somebody who's giving you advice doesn't ask for those numbers, they have the wrong incentives. Something is wrong with their business model, because if they don't care about your picture and they're going to tell you the same thing, no matter what your numbers look like, they're selling something. That's not a good sign. That means it doesn't matter. Your situation doesn't matter. They're going to give you the same advice, like no matter what you tell them. Everything, looks like a hammer if it's a nail, or whatever that slogan is. So
yeah.
I just isn't what you wanted, Andrew, but that's the answer I'm giving.
Well, what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it just kind of really depends on where your starting point is. So if you are kind of in the negative on your net worth,
there you go,
then you might go down one avenue. And then if you're net neutral, I guess, I don't know. And then if you're net positive, then you have different doors that you can go through.
Yes. So there's 12 really critical parts of finances. Okay. One of them is your savings, which savings is, I measure it as a percentage of your gross income. So how much of the total income you make in a year do you actually have? We call it, you have control over. Do you have as an optional thing that you can do something with? The other places it can go is taxes, debt, and spending. So people's budget, what they spend, is whatever it is. And, you have some control over that. Your debt, you have some control over the length of terms you pick and how much you pay down. Your taxes are the one you have the least control over. The government's going to forcibly takes what they want. But your savings, it will be a percentage of your gross income. It might be 2%. It might be like 5. It could be 10. It will probably never be higher than 40%. Like 40% of your total income would be like a lot. you're like, you need to go on a vacation if you're that person. Okay. But like some people that are really like super misery, we'll call them, that's kind of a negative word, but maybe a better, nicer word would be like an accumulator personality. Like you're just really like accumulating your money and you don't like spending it.
That's not me.
Yeah. That person could get their savings rate maybe as high as 40, but the bulk of us are going to be like struggling to get to 20%. It will be really hard to get to 20% of your gross income on saving money. I listed four of the 12, but savings is one. Second is spending, your budget. You have to know what percentage of your gross income you spend. And that really matters. If you're spending 80% of your gross income, like you're in trouble. I mean, there just is no way around the math because taxes are going to be like 20% for most people. If you're spending 80 and you have any debt, that's assuming you'd have no debt, then you still have no money for savings. If you're spending 80 and taxes are 20, you got nothing left. And so spending needs to be like down in the 50% of gross kind of income range in order to have room for some debt, like a mortgage. I would rather see spending lower, but if you're making 30,000 a year, and you're the only income earner, it's not going to be that. You're going to spend 60, 75%. And so you should be applauding yourself if you can save 5%. But keep in mind, your money can only go to those 4 places. Those are 4 of the 12 categories that are important, but your money can only go to one of those 4 places. And so when Andrew's asking, what do you do? Your net worth plays a factor in this, but your income level and how your money is split between those 4 categories also determines what you do. Because if your debt rate is too high, we probably need to accelerate it or refinance it or spread it out. If you're on a 5-year loan, we might have to go to a 7 or a 10-year, might have to go to a 15-year. If you're on a 15-year home loan, you might have to go to a 30. You just might have been too aggressive in how you're paying down your debt. And given your income level, will never get ahead. You're never going to take a vacation for like 20 years. And so there's always a paced and measured way that you can live life with money that doesn't feel stressful. There always is. But there's sometimes really hard decisions you have to make that work. And it's always about housing. It's always about housing. If you're in a bind, it's usually because you're in a housing situation that you can't afford. And so,
Interesting.
And it's either your rent is too high or your mortgage is too big. You have too many square feet for what your income level can support. So you have 2 options at that point. When I found myself in that situation, I just decided to go make more money instead of move. Now, if you can't make more money, then you might need to move. Okay. And that's a harder decision, but that's kind of like, that's item number 5 is your real estate decisions. They're critical. I won't go through all the items because, I don't want to bore everyone, but there are these like very specific items that you need to deal with. And it's not like rocket science. It's just each one of these has a very pragmatic answer. And if your ratios are off, like you just need to adjust them, and a nice buddy can help you with that. If I would say I can, my firm can, some other people can too. I don't want to like say everyone's thinking this way because this isn't like common financial wisdom. This is kind of like 10% of financial advisors think this way. And the other 90% are literally, when you sit down with them, they're going to be like, you should buy this 401k, or you should put your money into this life insurance policy. And that they won't be focused on the things that you care about as much because they're getting paid through products. The whole financial wealth management system is broken. I mean, it's a mess. It's like, imagine if doctors were employed by the drug companies, or if dentists were employed by Henry Schein. like that's the financial services industry right there. It's like the dentist working for Patterson. And Patterson's that you could work for Patterson, you could work for Shine, but you don't get paid on like procedural codes. You get paid on what composite you place, or what amalgam you use.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is the type of thing we're dealing with in the wealth management industry. It's bad. Like, can you imagine that? Like you don't get paid for hygiene, no compensation for hygiene, nothing, because there's no like
prevention doesn't pay.
Yeah, exactly, dude. So it's just crazy, but that's like how it works. So anyway, you got to just like run away from those types of people. If you want to go to our website and figure out if you're dealing with that type of person, we have a guide called 10 questions to ask before you hire a financial advisor. And it's under at dentisadvisors.com, hit the education library, click guides, and you'll just find that guidebook there and you can download it.
This sounds all very common sense though. But I do realize that especially the people that I work with, they are not financially and kind of mathematically literate. This is for you, it's probably very, very normal. I think for me, I do have a business background, so I think about numbers and money and saving and this and that and whatever. These are hard steps to take, actually, I think.
Yeah,
for people.
Big time. They're way tough. That's why, like, without technology, it's not going to happen. Like, we tried for like 10 years being like, let's host clinics, let's do events. It's like, people are like, oh, it's too hard. I hate this stuff anyway. I'm not going to take like a day to go and do an event and learn about it. But if we built this app and you put it in people's hands and like, just do this one simple thing, and then we could help you with that next little thing and then that next little thing. And we created a little prompt engine. Like, all my day right now is spent on like figuring out what prompts to give people when we see a certain piece of data. So the system is like, it raises a little white dot and a little bubble. And it's like, you entered this, but this is not present. Is this a problem? Like, are you doing this? If not, chat here and ask. So we're trying to just get little bits and pieces of information to people. So it's not like an unsolvable problem. And without technology, it's just too expensive. And you see that, like, I think like of the 300 million people in the US, only like 10% of them even work with a financial advisor. It's just like, there's only 200,000 financial advisors, that are really advisors in the country. And, there's 400,000 total, but most of those guys are like insurance brokers. And the advisor types are probably more like 20 to 30,000, like really good ones that only get paid hourly rates or fixed fees, some kind of fiduciary model. So just not a lot. And it's because people can't really like access them. You don't have enough money for like the guy to help you with money until you have a lot of money, right? That's when you have time. Who's there to help the people along the way? Like, who's going to guide them along the way? And so technology is the solution to getting like literacy. We call it exposing ideas down to people. And you have to design it. Like, I'm an arts background person, so I can relate to the hygienist. I can relate to the dentist. Like, my undergrad's in music composition. I thought I was going to be a music teacher my whole career. I taught piano lessons for the first few years of my career. I'm not like a typical finance person. I did my master's degree in finance once I figured that music lessons weren't enough to pay that house for the house I talked about. And I switched, right? But I understand where people are at with money and how it's not an accessible field. And so just tip would be like, make sure right now that you're doing something with someone. And I can't be the solution for everyone today, but I can be like a part of a solution, especially if you're in like a place where you want to do this right now. I can find a way to help you at some level. And there are other people that can too. But I think we've created something that will really help people get organized and start making decisions at a very low cost, which is like the problem that's been happening up till now. So anyway.
Well, and look, you may or may not be able to answer some of these questions, and that's okay, because it's kind of hard within a podcast, like generalize paintbrush, like for everyone, broad strokes. But I wanted to ask about your thoughts on like paying off a student loan versus just paying it off like the monthly minimum due.
Let's do it. I'll try to go fast on these, get through as many questions as we can. I would say one of the factors of the 12 that I was talking about is called liquidity. My answer to this question would depend on how much liquidity someone has. Liquidity is defined to me by adding up all the cash and accessible investments, like money you can get at quickly, like a mutual fund that you can just get at. That's all liquidity. So cash and investments. I measure how liquid someone is by adding all of that up and dividing it by how much they spend in a year. So if you have 30,000 and you spend 30,000, then you're at a 1 on my liquidity score, meaning you could live for 1 year, right? If you're at 0.5, it means you can live for like 6 months. If you're at 0.8, you can live for a little more. If you're a 1.5, you're like a year and a half kind of person. If you're a 10, you're like killing it. Like, oh my gosh, you're doing awesome. And so if you don't have a 1 liquidity score, I do not recommend you be paying down student loans in an aggressive way, unless your debt ratio is so high that you can't build liquidity. Like you can't even build up liquidity because your debt is so high. Then we have to either consolidate, refinance, defer, income-based, repay, IBR until we can get the debt balance down low enough to where we can start building liquidity. So you go through a crisis like right now, doesn't matter how low your student loan debts are, right? You don't have any cash, you're still screwed. And it'll become more and more important in the world going forward that you build liquidity before you pay off debt. Because if the federal government continues to struggle with their own debt problems, but you're super fiscally conservative and you're paying off all your debts, but you don't have any cash, essentially what's happening is like all the things that you're paying off and all the things you're working so hard to pay down, they're becoming worth less and less as time goes on because of what the government's doing by taking on more and more debt themselves. And so if you want to protect your own finances, you have to stay liquid enough and have enough cash to where if we go through a tough time like we're going through right now, you're not in a bind. So if somebody says, well, my investments are only making me 3%, but my loan's at 5% interest, I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Because if you can't work or this thing gets shut down, or you need to make a job transition, or you need to like take some risk and maybe move to a different job that doesn't pay you as high of an hourly rate, but it pays a higher production percentage, and you need to kind of advance your career, you want to have that liquidity to be able to take a little bit of risk and control what little entrepreneurial options you have. If you want to move houses and get to a better spot, if you want to relocate, like all this takes cash, and debt is important to reduce. It really is, as long as we're doing it by a reasonable point in our lives, by the time we're ready to retire, in our 50s, in our 60s. Like I don't have a problem with someone having a mortgage clear till they're ready to retire. I don't want them necessarily to have a mortgage during retirement, but if that meant that it's the only option they have to maintain liquidity, then I would still prefer that. So anyway, we got some questions from the audience. Let's see if we've got any questions.
I have a question because my brain does not work this way. So I need
cool.
real-time examples. For instance, like right now, we might be getting this $1,200 stimulus check or whatever they're calling it, right?
Yeah.
So if I have a credit card with a payment that's due, maybe right before this happened, I bought something, a patio set. Now I have an $800 patio set or something on a credit card. You're saying don't take that $1,200 and pay off that $800 because you need that cash right now.
Does this person have any more money than $1,200?
No.
So I'd say no, they don't pay that off because I know
make your minimum payment kind of there.
Yeah. Once you got to where you had like $5,000, then I would pay it off. Right. But I would make sure I built my liquidity to where, like that person in your theoretical example, the thing I said at the beginning, like what's your liquid score? What's your score? Are you a 0.5 or a 1 or a 0.2? Your example, that person's a 0 score, right? They got nothing. So in that case, they can't afford to pay off that thing. Even if it's $800 and it's going to cost them $80 in interest this year, or maybe even $100 in interest, right? It could be $120 in interest. That's a price I got to pay in order for me to get my $5,000 in the bank. Once I do have that, then I can pay it off. Now, Dave Ramsey would say, debt is dumb, cash is king. You got to pay it off, get a second job, start delivering pizzas, go. And I'm just going, that does apply to some people. I get it. But like, I see too many people like getting in trouble because they don't have any liquidity, they have no cash. And it just takes like one bad month, like coronavirus, and people are defaulting on everything. And, I can't give that specific example until I talk to that person. But that's the kind of brain that I would have about it. So, and I know that it like costs you money to not pay off that card, but like you're in a worse spot by not having access to any cash. You're worse off, from a security and protection and elevating yourself to a better place in life perspective, you're worse off without the cash. And so I look at everyone's situation, and honestly, like career elevation, career mobility, income mobility, moving in a positive direction, that is most important to me. Like if you're making $15 an hour right now, I want to know how you can make 20. If you're making 40, I want to know how you can make 50. 50, I want to know how you can move to 60. And I want career mobility to be the real driver for people's financial decisions. And a lot of times liquidity is the way that they can drive career mobility. If you have $5,000 in the bank, you can take a different job if your current employer is not actually treating you fairly. You can't afford to do that if you don't have money in the bank. And if you don't have money in the bank, you can't get continuing education to increase your skill set, to make you a better hygienist, and eventually get to where you're at a 6-figure income level. And a 6-figure hygienist is in a world better spot than someone who's at, entry level compensation and struggling to get $1 an hour raise. And that's going to take liquidity to get you there. You got to invest in yourself. You got to build career mobility. You've got to maybe take a different job. You have to talk to your employer and say, hey, I want to produce this. And if I produce this much, I want to be able to get bonused for that. If I can do this much activity, if I can get new patients in the door, what will you compensate me for bringing new patients in the door? What if I go get referrals? What if I bring in my friends and family? Like, how am I going to be compensated for that? Like those kind of things are going to be way more valuable than whether you pay $100 in interest on the patio set this year. And I'm not saying we shouldn't pay that off eventually. I'm just saying if it's at the expense of you having no cash to do these other things I'm talking about, then we're not really moving your career in the right direction. We're not advancing our career. And so I would tell that same advice to a young dentist. I would rather see a dentist with $50,000 in the bank and $400,000 of student loans than somebody with no money in the bank and only $350 in student loans, right? So you can have $350 and no money, or you could have $400 in loans and $50,000 in the bank. It's the same net worth, right? It's the same wealth level. You're just more liquid in one of these examples. And probably, Michelle, it's like a bad example because you're just like trying to do the math in your head and you're like, I'm not following this math. Get it?
What you said though, because I've done the Dave Ramsey thing like a billion years ago. And I have heard that like, pay it off, get it. And that's always been in the back of my head. So like if let's say, we get this stimulus check and I owe $1,200 on my credit card, I should pay that so that I don't have debt, right? Like that would definitely have been in my head. But I also, what you said resonates with me, and it probably resonates with a lot of people, is that if your employer is not treating you well, you have the option of going because you have this liquidity.
Yes. Nice job.
From a hygiene standpoint, even just in this moment, like we have you on right now because we are all suffering, staying at home, COVID, personal protective equipment is going to be a big, big issue. And a lot of people are like, what if my employer doesn't give me what I need? What do I do? And I think that this would provide you with an answer of like, you don't go work for them. Like you go find somewhere else that's going to treat you right. Yeah. And that's always been very hard to say to someone because that they're like the one breadwinner. They don't have that, they're living paycheck to paycheck. And so to be like, ethics or, finding like, that's a hard place. That's a rock and a hard place for sure. But if you do have that liquidity, which is what has kind of resonated with me, is that I have that option to kindly ask them to, whatever, see you later. Bye-bye. I don't need you. I'll get what I want to protect myself because I had this in the bank. And I think that's just, it prepares you for more upward mobility, which is the only place that kind of like making more money does a lot more than earning a return on your money. So earning a return on your money is a good thing to do, like getting it invested and growing it. But like earning more money does way more for your net worth and your wealth plan than just investing what you have. So I think it's important for people to remember that wealth is created as you earn more, and you always want to be setting your finances up to a spot that helps you earn more. And liquidity helps you take that a different position or negotiate with your employer. Like a lot of times, let's say you wanted to stay, but you want to make more. You say, look, I'm going to take a cut in my hourly rate. I'm going to cut my hourly rate by $5 because I want to get paid more on production
because I've learned more skills now and I feel like I can add more value to the practice. If I do this and I give you a reduction in my hourly, will you pay me more if I produce more? Or pay me more if I produce the same even, or this new procedure, or if I can add this number of customers through referrals, I'll take a reduction on my hourly. But when I bring customers in, I want to get paid $200 for every new customer, that I bring in to our practice. And that kind of thing, no one thinks to say that kind of stuff. It's like, why would I ever do that? It's like, that's what employers want you to say. Like, I want my team, I'm desperately wanting my team to come to me and just be like, I thought of something. If I go and can get 20 new dentists this year to come in and work with us, how much will you pay me for each one of them? I'd be like, $1,500 per person. Like, that's my cost of customer acquisition right now. So if you can find me a GP, specialist, anyone who, is in your network to come in, for every one of those people, I'm currently paying my marketing department between $1,200 and $1,500 a year to find a customer. So you find one, I'll pay you that. Great. No one's ever asked me that once in 15 years. All right. No one's thinking that way. And I'm encouraging them to now, because it's been on my mind recently. But I just feel like a lot of us don't assume that we have, as an employee, we don't have any power to create upward mobility in our current job. We have to just go find a new one.
A lot of people feel like that. A lot of hygienists, and I'm sure associate dentists as well.
Yeah. Anyway, well, that's great. That was great. Good insight too, Michelle. I think that's exactly how people are thinking. So anyway, Andrew, we probably got time for one more.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. It's nice having a fellow podcaster. They know the time, they know everything.
Yeah.
I think the biggest question, I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, and maybe this falls into the savings thing, but it's 401k, Roth IRA, as far as savings, retirement. What kind of hygienist or team member should be contributing, and at what percentage? I know this is, again, broad strokes are kind of hard, but is that a thing that they should be doing?
Yeah, every employer that's offering a 401k or something will either have a match or they won't have a match. If they don't have a match, I wouldn't put money in. I wouldn't participate if there's no match. If there is a match, I would put money in. And I would put up to whatever they're willing to match me. And then if I don't have a retirement plan, I would set one up on my own, online, with any number of platforms. You could set it up at TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, Scottrade, Wealthfront, Betterment, Robinhood, WealthVest. There's a lot of places to set up accounts. You could sign up for a service like ours that just gives you advice on how to do that and give you a little bit more context, before you go and pick the provider. But my suggestion would be, like, if you think about taking that money instead of paying off the debt, if you were to put that inside of an account, if you're a 2-income household and you were to put that inside of an account, you're actually putting more money into the account than what you put in. It might sound a little crazy, but if I put $1,000 into an account versus just keep it and spend it, when I keep it and spend it, I have to pay 20 to 30% in taxes on that money, right? And so if I keep it, I'm only really going to be able to get $700 out of my $1,000. If I put it into a retirement account, I'm actually putting the full $1,000 in, and it stays in there, and I don't have to pay taxes on that money. And so by putting money into retirement accounts, there is an advantage to doing that. And on the flip side, there's multiple types of accounts that you can do, and multiple advantages for each one. But there's like real dollar amount advantages each year, each month, by putting money away and saving it. But again, that's not necessarily liquidity, right? Liquidity is different than retirement accounts. And if you don't have liquidity, you wouldn't want to start thinking about retirement accounts yet. You'd want to just start thinking about, do I have my 6 months worth of personal spending so that I can make my personal mobility in my career, start to move in the right direction? And then I might start looking at retirement accounts. So does that answer help a little bit?
That's great. Yeah, I think that's a solid answer.
So for the last little bit, I would love for us to tell everyone, can I ask the cost of the app?
Yeah, right now it's going to range anywhere, depending on if you want chat support or not, be like $29 to up to $49 for more support. As we get it to where it has more tools and more content, we might increase the cost for the support. but I would want to always make sure it's under $100, like for people to be able to ask their questions and know that there's a resource. Because people make mistakes a lot with their money. When they file their taxes, they make mistakes. When they pay down their house, they make mistakes. When they put money away for kids, when they pick their retirement accounts. And so I want to create some way for them to like have an inexpensive safety valve to reach out to, even if it's just a text. They should be able to text a smart person and get an answer quickly. So right now, I would say that I don't anticipate having anything that'll be less than $29 a month for being able to text somebody, because it's just hard to scale that down. If we got a lot bigger, I'm hoping we can bring the price down even more. But these are humans that are, most of them are like very capable hygienists, in their field. And so you have to think about kind of the hourly rate that a very capable person is going to make and how long it takes to answer a text, or a message and give the right responses. And so that's kind of the range we're trying to experiment with right now. So if somebody wanted to test it today with me, I'd be like, okay, we could test you at a price point in that level. And I would probably make it custom right now based on their individual complexity and how many questions they thought they might have, and try to because we're just trying to learn right now. We're not trying to like sell it yet. I want people to have some skin in the game, but we don't really know what this even costs. Like, we don't know. When it'll take like a few hundred people on it and kind of seeing like how many questions they're asking before we even know like if the cost is $20 a month, or is it 60, is it 30, or, we're trying to figure that out right now. So whatever you want to pay right now.
I guarantee you I would be like, that's right. I'm like, normally I probably could have had this app for 2 years. I would have asked you 3 questions in those 2 years. And then this would have happened. And you would have been
flooded it. Yeah.
Like I would be losing my mind on this app. And you'd be like, oh, we've been making all this money on Michelle. And like, I'm about to get it back.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what happens. See, and that's exactly what happens. Financial pain comes in spurts in people's lives.
Yeah.
And so what you have to do is you have to say, you got to sign people up for a year, and you got to say, look, you got to commit to your $29 for a year, because in a month you might not get the value, but there's going to be one of these months where you're going to get the value. And we have to be able to get people there in enough quantity so that when the people do have the questions and they come in a flood, it's not like we're having to train people and get them up and running. And so that's the challenge with financial stuff, is people want to, if you say, well, it's $150 for a question, people are less likely to want to do that because it seems like a lot of money. But if it's like, it's $150 over a year, it'll be easier to stomach that and budget it. And they'd rather pay it monthly. And so we've tested, like, do people want to pay for an appointment and a one sitting consult? And I don't think most people want that. Most people have a question. They want to text it through. They want to get their answer as quick as possible. And we're able to give cool citations and resources and like, this is the answer. Here's why. Here's a good documented source for why we're saying this. And it makes people feel real comfortable, that they're making the right decision. Like, hey, I'm with my mortgage broker right now. He says to make this choice. Take a picture of the document, text it through, and get the feedback from the person you're paying to just give you advice, right? Don't ask the person that's getting paid to sell you the mortgage what you think that you should do. Now, maybe they're the most honest mortgage broker in the world, but they still have an incentive that may not be like perfect. And you never know when you're with the guy or the gal that like seems like they're honest, but they're just kind of like shady, and you never know. And so it's good to know that you have one like lever to pull where you could say, hey, I just look at this document. I don't know what to do here. Or can you answer this question for me? And if your profile is filled out and if your profile is up to date, the answer can be really accurate, specific to you. But like in the past, see, if you were just texting me a question, I would have so many questions for you before I could give you your answer. But if you can keep your profile up to date, and the app helps you do that, then when you have a question, I can give you answers quick and things that you won't have thought about. Like, hey, did you think about this? You could do this with this and not do that. And so just getting your picture in there and then texting your question, it's just very efficient. So that's why we do it on a monthly basis, because it's more about paying our developers to create the prompts in the prompt engine to make sure you're keeping your stuff up to date than it is for, every month there's people working on the app and they're the developers listening to the clients, getting the feedback and putting the prompts into the system. And then there's the financial experts who are never going to be out of the picture because you can't build technology to answer the kind of questions we're asking today. Like, it's really hard. Like, there is some custom personal decision making that is emotional, that is really going to be more of a consult, kind of better with a buddy kind of thing. And there's some stuff that computers are just really good at, like organizing documents and analyzing balances on accounts. So anyway, that hopefully that helps answer a little bit. But as we get rolling with it more, I'll make sure and put together, a landing page. We have a training class going on right now. I don't know if they've changed the price on that or not. I told them to change it to $49 yesterday. It was at $29. It's at dentistadvisors.com/beta. Every Thursday night, so tonight is a Thursday, every Thursday night at 6:30 p.m., we do a live webinar with people in the beta that are in the app right now. So every Thursday night from 6:30 to 8, people can dial in from their house on a Zoom webinar. They have their app open and we go through like sections and ideas. And so they're able to fill out their own information and stay on top of it while we teach them a concept about money and finance. And if they are in the program for like 12 to 18, weeks, it could be, 3 months or 4 months of just once a week, they'll get the hang of it and know what to do. And then they can be supported by the chat system after that in a really good way. So that's our plan. And hopefully it helps people.
So just as a final word, and again, I know this is super hard to give like general advice, but our audience is not business owners typically. I mean, there's the occasional ones, but many people are living like paycheck to paycheck. And so at this moment, they're feeling very financially insecure. So is there like one, like everyone needs to do that? I mean, liquidity seems like a really good one, but like just good advice everyone could apply, or at least go and check that they do this.
Okay, the final piece of advice I would give people is focus on building your liquidity at least up to 6 months worth of personal spending before you start aggressively reducing your debt. That'll keep you out of a bind in a situation like we are in today. I know you're already there right now and you probably don't have that liquidity, and that's not going to help you right now, but it will help you the next time around. And always remember that before you start thinking you have enough for that big vacation or you've got that for that next new car. If you don't have 6 months worth of liquid reserves, then those can be invested. They can be growing at 2 or 3% a year in something conservative, and it can help you learn how to do that. But like those need to be like accessible to you. If you don't have that, build it up. If you're in that spot right now, really focus on calling every lender, calling every car company, call your mortgage company, tell them to defer, tell them you need 60 days, tell them you need 90 days. Everyone right now is in a spot where they're willing to negotiate and help. The piece of advice I would give you after that is get your lifestyle to a place where you can save at least 10% of your gross income every month. That will help you get to a spot where you can build up that liquidity. If you can't save 10% of your gross income, you have to either adjust your housing, adjust your car, adjust your lifestyle. You'll just be in a bind forever if you don't get to where you have at least that much. And your goal should be getting to where you're saving at least 10%. If you can get up to 20, that's like golden for most hygienists. I wouldn't expect most hygienists to be able to save 20% of their gross income. But if you can, you're doing awesome. If you're saving less than 10, you're not saving enough. And if you're saving 15, that's probably really good too. So between 10 and 20% of your gross. And that money should be accumulating in a good way, over the next few years.
All right. And where can people find more information if they want to find this app, go to your website, contact you, anything?
Right now, I would say go to dentistadvisors.com/beta. I know that link will be available. Again, this beta is for young career, it's for associates, it's for young career doctors, it's for D4 students that are graduating. Like it is intended for the person that's more early on in their cycle of earning money and learning about money. And it's for some of you who are later stage, but maybe just haven't ever like done this before and kind of feel like you're a little embarrassed, like reaching out to a person directly and getting help right now. And you just want to kind of work your way into better money habits. So if you go to dentistadvisor.com/beta, whatever's there is going to be our current offer. that is going to help people kind of take that next step. And you'll be able to download the app there and start attending the learning courses.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure, and really enjoyed meeting you, Michelle and Andrew. Thanks for all you guys are doing each week too. It's a labor of love to put this out there. So not a lot of people know how hard it is to do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reese. Appreciate it.
So I definitely am going to rethink some of my steps right now as far as what I'm going to do with my savings. And, I was giving an example in the episode in the interview part, but, even I was like, so I'm super close to paying off my student loan, like super close. Like, I'm so excited that I'm so close. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I should just knock it out. Like, let me just get rid of all my debt. Then I don't have to worry about it all. And now I'm like, maybe federal loans will sit just a little bit longer.
Well, yeah, I mean, he brings up a good point about liquidity. And he also brings up a very good point that everyone is in a different situation. And not all of us are really literate for finances. And so it's a good idea to ask some advice. One thing I also think that, like, I can't stress this enough. I love that you guys are all listening to our podcast. Thank you so much. But the Dentist Money Show is the name of their podcast.
Yeah, you should be listening to that, because when they go, and they also do Facebook Lives and they do a bunch of other things, but you can take pieces from all of their content, and this is all free content, and he wants to give it to you, and just find out how you can plug those little bits into your life, or even just be thinking about it if you're not quite ready yet. Like, now's the time to start doing that while you have the time to be listening to this advice. Yeah, for sure. And, I think now that we're all even adjusting how we listen to stuff. So like, I think nobody watched webinars until the evenings, and now you're webinar all day, every day. We listened to podcasts as we were commuting, and now we're like, when do we listen to these podcasts? So if you're still like looking for your rhythm in your day-to-day routines, I think, I don't know, maybe go back to like in the morning, you wake up, you do your coffee, you do your stuff, and then listen to a podcast. You might not be driving. Well, you're not driving to work. Most of us aren't, but maybe you just kind of listen to your podcast or get your content like you used to, and kind of find that familiarity to your routines again.
Yeah, I mean, we have an episode coming up with Michelle Galloway, and she talks a little bit about habit stacking, and that, which, by the way, that heads up, listen to that episode too. It's really good.
Super good.
But I think that's one of the things that I just recently learned about, though, is like, in this time of we don't really have our routine anymore, we still there's a huge importance of creating that routine. And as you mentioned earlier, like the first few weeks, like we kind of got out of that routine and weren't figuring it out. But now's the time where we can probably get back into the swing of things. So that would be a good thing, I think, to figure out how you're going to incorporate all this into your daily life.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that we didn't bring up is that you need a haircut.
Oh, this whole thing? I know.
Isn't it funny?
Terrible.
Like, I keep joking, like we're really all coming out on the same like level playing field. I was joking because I mean, I have no qualms about saying how much I get Botox. I've had Botox for years. I am a fan of the resting bitch face, because otherwise you might not enjoy the face that you get when you say the words to me. So
I read what she means.
Freeze it so that I don't give it all away, because I have zero poker face. So I'm doing a lot of video conferences, which, honestly, I think I'm doing still okay with all of this, because you and I do this often. I talk to my friends often. So last night I had a video call with 3 of my girlfriends. My BFF KP that you mentioned too, she's back from Liberia. So they, evacuated her. She got back 2 days ago. So of course she's in quarantine. She's at our house in quarantine for a few weeks. And I was like, this is insane that you are literally we're in the same town and I still have to do this video conference with you. But
how's Stephanie and Lindsay doing?
Look at you. It was Stephanie, Lindsay, and KP. Look at that.
I wrote a note.
You'll hear that on next week's podcast.
Pull that out.
He had to do that. But yeah, but it was nice, at least I get to like have these moments with my friends. But I was joking, like, you guys, y'all have not seen my forehead move this much ever in our friendship, ever. And I'm not okay with it. My KP, who does not get Botox and really thinks I'm insane for doing it, she's like, you don't feel like this is the way it should be? I was like, in no world, absolutely not. Do I feel like this is the way that I should? And now that I'm doing all these video conferences, I actually see my face and it moving, and I'm like, this is something needs to change. Y'all need to stay home until so I can get back out and get to my Botox. Okay.
I wonder if they have some sort of like a drive-through Botox for you that you could do.
So there is a
Stay in your
video
car.
of somebody, because I don't get my nails done or anything like that. Botox is literally probably the only thing that I do. Like, I don't get my hair done. I don't get it highlighted. I don't do anything. Like, literally, it's just Botox. And there was this funny TikTok video that was somebody driving up, and they had like their window rolled down, but it had like plastic on it, and you could like put your hands through it, and they would do your nail in the
Nice.
And I was like, where is that for my Botox? Give me that. I will go to someone's trunk. I will go and get my Botox out of somebody's trunk of the car at this.
Okay. Well,
Desperate times, Andrew. But you're going to get your hair cut eventually. I'm just waiting to see.
I don't know.
You're not, because you actually did try to grow it out for a while there. So I feel like
It just grows out so splotchy and patchy. And I'm just like, sometimes it's longer and sometimes, you know what? I'll tell you what. I feel like we should do something about that again. I feel like there could be a way to raise money for a good cause and have Molly like buzz my hair all the way off.
Molly's his adorable daughter, who's 8?
Yeah.
So that would be hilarious. I think she'd be super capable though. So that wouldn't be nearly as fun for me.
Okay.
Because I feel like she's a super capable
She is.
child. Like that.
But
that
she'd
would
cut
be
my
like,
hair down to nothing. That's the funny part. I'd be mostly bald.
And by the way, y'all, when I woke up today and felt like I had the Rona, Andrew asked me if I had all my stuff in place, and I was like, no, I don't really, but just make sure Lola, my child, my dog, my fur baby, is taken care of. She needs all the cushy surfaces, and Molly has agreed to take Lola as her dog and give her all the cushy surfaces. So thank you, Molly.
Molly is just like, she speaks dog. So
according to Molly, she speaks dog, which is great because I don't. And apparently Lola's probably had a lot to say. And so Molly and her are going to get along beautifully.
So hurry up and die, and then we'll take care of Lola. That's the takeaway.
We'll see you next week, because I who knows what 7 days from now when you hear the next one, we'll see if she's still alive. Yeah. So anywho, if you aren't already, we would love for you to hit that subscribe button or favorite button, whatever you're doing in your podcasting apps. And if you want, we'd also love for you to share an episode. Tell your friends. To be quite honest, the dentists are crushing the hygienists in the podcast world. And so spread the word, tell your friends. And you can also follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and interact with us there. But if you don't want to direct message us in either one of those platforms, you're welcome to send us an email at ataleoftwohygienists@gmail.com or head over to our website, which is ataleoftwohygienists.com, where you can actually find all your episodes for CE credit, where you can get the links to the quizzes to get your CE credit in the show notes of each of those episodes. We have everything categorized. We have an amazing team, Lacey and Brittany, that help us get all that stuff together. So go use our website because it's there for you guys to just to make your life a little bit easier. But we hope everybody has a really great week. You're staying healthy. You're finding some, not just healthy, like physical, but also in your mental health. And we'll talk a little bit about that next week too. So tune in then. Anything else from you, Andrew?
Oh, that's it for me. Be safe, everyone.
Yes. Bye, y'all.